So yeah, we can kick off. So welcome everyone that's joined with us today on our first ever Share and Inspire. My name is Pascal van Berg. I'm responsible for the new business and strategic partnerships within CloudNation. I'm joined here today by Mark Noorman. Mark, perhaps you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone. I am a solution architect at CloudNation, doing lots of different public cloud stuff. And yeah, I always have remained a specific interest in networking, and that hasn't changed when I started working with public cloud. So I'm also quite busy developing our networking business specialty within the organization.
Yeah, so this is our first ever Share and Inspire, and we called it this way because we do this regularly in our own organization. We do Share and Inspires every week, actually, with our internal teams. We have AWS team and an Azure team. And yeah, what we do is we share trends, inspiring stories that happen at customers, the latest best practices, updates. And we thought, yeah, why not do this also for a wider audience instead of only do this internally. So that's why we kicked off this first ever edition of Share and Inspire, where we will talk today about the trends in cloud networking. And yeah, we also love your feedback after this session. I mean, we booked this for 2 hours now, not really knowing how long this will take and what we can expect, like how many questions, and will it be very open discussion. So that's why we booked it a little longer. Can be that we end up much faster or perhaps not. So that's why we booked it for 2 hours. And yeah, like I said, we are really interested in feedback also on how often should we do this, what kind of topics, perhaps if it's possible again, should we perhaps do it on a location again? I will send a survey afterwards to all the participants, and yeah, we are really happy to hear from you what you think about this, because yeah, we want to build some kind of a community, you know, where we can share our stories and our trends and insights, and we also really would like to hear from you, of course, what you see happening in the whole cloud market, and yeah, that's what we hope to get from these sessions. Yeah, where we can share our stories and we can build this community together. So a bit about our agenda. We will start with the latest trends and developments in native tooling, so AWS and Azure. Then we'll go a little deeper into the multi-cloud and the complexity and what we see happening there. And last but not least, we also have one of our business partners joining a bit later in the call. It's Aryaka, and they build really big cloud networks upscale. And yeah, we are really interested in hearing from them as well, what's going on, what they see. So Lisette is joining us later, and she will talk us through what their perspective is on the multi-cloud and big cloud networks. So yeah, without further ado, yeah, one interesting thing, by the way, to mention is if you have any questions or yeah, would like to tell us anything, perhaps an insight or perspective, you can raise your hand or you can drop a note in the chat, and then we'll answer those as quickly as possible. Or if we do not have the answer right away, we can always get back to you later, of course, with the answer. So yeah, without further ado, Mark, can you tell us first a bit more what's going on in AWS, the latest
Right.
updates, and what you see in, happening there in our customer base.
Yeah, thanks Pascal for the introduction. Like Pascal said, let's keep it interactive. This is not an extremely large group, so if you have any remarks, questions, ideas, just put it in a chat or raise your hand, and we'll have some breaks in between to answer those. Agenda, like Pascal already mentioned, I'll have some quick developments we're seeing within AWS. I'll dive a bit deeper into Microsoft Azure Virtual One, and we'll have a multi-cloud customer case based on Aviatrix solutions. And the last part will be taken care of by Aryaka. But first of all, why is this meeting relevant for you? Networking was and still is the foundation of your workloads. Whether you're using container solutions like Kubernetes, you offer web or SaaS services, you have a hybrid solution with private and public cloud hosting, you need connectivity to branch offices or partners. The network is always the layer that makes it all happen. And developments within this expertise are going at a really fast pace. Okay, first up, AWS. Direct Connect is the private connectivity solution AWS offers from your often corporate data center to AWS Cloud. What we've seen recently is they've upgraded the bandwidth option with a 100 gig at specific locations. Could be quite useful when you're hitting that limit of 10 gig quite frequently. You can aggregate several 10 gig lines to one connection, but this can also be a quite cost-effective solution for you. And what I've also added is MACsec encryption for the 10 and 100 gig connections. Not everywhere, not all regions, but at specific locations. When your business requires that traffic over Direct Connect always needs to be encrypted, this is a cool native addition to that. Transit Gateway is must be familiar to a lot of you. It's the AWS native solution to interconnect everything, your VPCs, your VPN to sites, your client VPN, Direct Connect, etc. VPC peering, etc. It's really quite a good scalable service. And what I've now added is Transit Gateway Connect. It's a new feature for better integration of software-defined WAN appliances. And it creates a simplified design. It's more standardized with lower operational costs. Deployment is much easier. And it's much more easier to set up than individual IPsec tunnels to all sorts of different locations. And it still has a seamless integration with the native AWS network services. Well, let's have a look at Azure, what's happening over there. Virtual One is a relatively new service, been implemented a couple of years ago. And right at the moment, we're seeing developments going quite fast. It's a bit similar to the Transit Gateway at AWS. It's one central hub within a region that connects everything. It connects all the spoke VNets. Hub spoke architecture is an often recommended solution for a lot of environments. It's often recommended by Microsoft if you have a bit of a larger environment. But instead of a hub VNet, you now have the Virtual One hub. And like you see in the picture, you can have one hub in each region, and you can connect everything to it. You spoke VNets, but also your express routes, your VPN solutions, etc. What we're seeing happening right now is Virtual One had quite a few limitations since its inception, but they're now being removed at quite a fast pace. Like, for example, just like Direct Connect, Express Route now also offers MACsec encryption when it's required by your business. Also a really cool feature. There was a limitation of a maximum of 200 BGP routes on an Express Route gateway. if the express route gateway would receive its 201st route, it would cause all routes to be dropped with all connectivity stopping from that moment. It's not something you want in your production environment at all. This limitation is now being removed. So also really good for larger scalable environments. Azure Firewall is a security feature you can deploy and integrate within your Virtual WAN hub. This now not only scales based on the CPU utilization, but also on the throughput, the amount of traffic it's managing. So that's also quite a cool feature. And compared to a VNet hub spoke architecture, deploying and attaching new spoke VNets has become a lot easier. And what you're just like in this picture at the bottom, inter-region VNet to VNet traffic can now be ensured to pass the Azure Firewall. So you always have that security check, that security measure in the path. IPv6 support within Virtual WAN is on the Microsoft backlog, so that's probably not too far away. That's supported, and the route summarization for more effective, more efficient route tables is also on the backlog. From a management perspective, deployment of Virtual WAN is quite simple and can be done through either the Azure portal, ARM templates, PowerShell, or Terraform. So it's quite versatile. The hubs within Virtual WAN are fully managed services with VPN and express route gateways deployed always in an active setup. So you have high availability by default. There are no longer user-defined routes required anymore. So routing within your Azure environment has become much more simple and controlled from one central point. There's a lot of risk on human errors, typos has been removed this way, and also additional security features are available and really easily and seamlessly deployed. And also the partner integrations within Virtual WAN are also growing. Cisco Cloud On-Ramp is a Cisco SD-WAN solution that's already available to integrate within the Virtual WAN hub, and also Barracuda firewalls are also already available. I expect this list to grow quite rapidly. Also, Checkpoint has an integration with Virtual WAN. They can deploy their Cloud Guard Connect to create a secured virtual hub. This will secure your VNet and branch office connections to the internet. So, like we see, there's a lot of new features are really in the security field. So that's definitely one point they're focusing on at the moment.
Mark, quick question. You mentioned and you see that there's a lot going on the security side. Can you explain a bit more what you see happening without dropping any names within our own customers and the choices that are being made with these kind of updates and tooling and security choices?
What we've seen quite a lot is that customers will deploy these native services, but often the business or the security officer, security department will demand additional security measures. Like, for example, this slide, Azure Firewall is the native firewall solution that Azure offers. However, it was only a basic firewall, but now this is also already available as a premium feature.
Right.
The premium is in public preview, but it's expected to be generally available in the next couple of months. And this now offers also TLS inspection, intrusion detection and prevention services, URL filtering, and the use of web categories. So these are things the customers really need, and in the past they were often deployed as additional services, additional products, NVAs, for example, within the Azure VNets. But this is now becoming all available as a native service. So you just have to enable it, and it's a managed service, and Azure, Microsoft will take care of its availability and performance.
Yeah, so on one hand, you see that still a lot of customers use third-party services on top of the native Azure or AWS features that are already available. But on the other side, you see that AWS and Microsoft are really increasing the standard functionalities that are available.
Yeah.
And that's actually ever growing and getting
Yeah.
better and better.
That's
But
always
still,
that's always
I mean,
that's always the
still
game they're playing.
Yeah.
They're as soon as a new service is deployed, it's never fully functional. So there are partners that step into that field. They see a market, they see business, so they offer additional features. And as soon as there are sufficient customers using those additional features, Microsoft and AWS will say, hey, let's develop our own service on top of what's already available. And well, those partners solutions often become obsolete. That's always the game
that's the game,
that's
of
happening.
course. Yeah, but still, I mean, you see the security issues are also ever growing and adapting. So it will be an ongoing game, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
One additional feature I heard from Microsoft themselves is that firewall rule hit count is now in private preview. So in a traditional firewall, you could always see the counters that were being measured by the firewall itself. How often every rule will be hit. So you can quickly identify, well, this rule is being hit a lot. So a lot of traffic is going through these ports to these IP addresses. But now you can you can also see which rules are not being hit. So in fact, they're polluting the firewall rule base. So they're not doing anything. So it's easier to remove them. This wasn't available in the Azure firewall, but it's coming quite soon as well. So I think it's from a security or network management perspective, this is also quite a nice feature to keep the rule base as clean as possible.
Cool. Just one more question, Mark. Do you also see that we just talked about what's available in Azure and AWS and actually just a native tooling, and on top of that, still a lot of customers choose to add additional functionalities. But do you also see customers going more and more for just the native tooling? What's available? I mean, yeah, you just mentioned it's ever growing and new features are added really on a fast pace.
It really depends on the policy within each company. It can be very different. Some companies, architecture departments, they state we only use the native services. So that's it. That's our standpoint. We cannot deploy anything on top of that. On the other hand, we have, as you know, quite a few startups as our customers, and they often have quite a lot of really specific tooling or databases they need to be using. So it really depends on the type of customer, the type of services they use, and also the policies from within the company.
Of course, yeah, it's a matter of what needs to be checked in the box as well, right? In case of security, and how far do you want to go as an organization and what is required.
All those additional tools are fine, but they need to be managed, they need to be maintained, they need to be updated from time to time. So it also requires knowledge, effort. So there needs to be a balance. To finalize this slide, Azure Firewall also has a really tight integration with Azure Security Center. So your monitoring from your firewall, your logging, etc., is also being integrated at one central point where you can have a really cool dashboard with all your security occurrences within your Azure environment. There's also enhancements on visibility and metrics. Virtual One has now more granular topology insights. You can have a really cool graphic overview of what's connected with what, if there's any disturbances within those links. And this way you can really make a nice long-term plan of your Azure infrastructure worldwide if necessary. And also additional monitoring metrics for alerting and analysis, whatever you need. Let's say you already, probably a lot of companies already have hub and spoke VNet architecture. And what I'm doing at the moment that the customer is migrating this to Virtual One. And to be honest, it's quite straightforward. We've done this at other customers as well. And Microsoft has some really good documentation on the steps you need to take. You can just deploy Virtual One, attach it to the existing environment, to the hub virtual network, and then just one by one migrate all the different components like the firewall, like ExpressRoute, like a VPN, etc. And finally, all the spoke virtual networks. So it's quite straightforward. There shouldn't be any limitation for you to decide to start using Virtual One. Well, let's summarize it. It's a very cost-effective service, especially for larger or fast-growing Azure environments that need to be able to manage their environment at scale, or they have complex connectivity like branch partner connectivity. It's become a mature product in the last 2 years with lots of limitations being removed and nice cool additions, especially for security. And network and route management has become quite a lot easier because it's done from one central component. Virtual One now manages all the routing, and you don't have to do that from all sorts of different scripts, etc. And finally, some nice, cool, increased visibility and analytics features you need from a management perspective. And the migration from a hub spoke VNet, if you already have an environment in place, start using Virtual One. There's of course some things to think about. You need to consider it thoroughly, but there's no technical limitation for you to start the migration.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing this, Mark. And we just talked about what's going on in AWS and Virtual One with Azure. We talked about adding extra functionalities from third-party solutions, more on the security side of that, because some organizations need extra security features that are not as deeply available in the native services. But what we also see happening, Mark, is that we see organizations that not only use AWS or Azure or their own private data centers, they use multiple clouds, as we call that actually. And what we see there is that the complexity is only getting bigger, and the security challenges are getting also more complex. And there's no visibility, like you just explained with Azure, for example, that you can build a very nice visibility with the tooling that's available. But yeah, what are the challenges we see there? I mean, there are a lot of organizations we work with and we speak with that use AWS, that use Azure, perhaps both, private clouds, maybe even Google or Alibaba when they work in China. There's a lot going on in that world as well. Yeah, perhaps you can share that story with us, Mark.
Yeah, sure. I'd like to talk a bit now about, like Pascal's introduction already stated, multi-cloud challenges and solutions that are available. And that solution is based on our another one of our partners, Aviatrix. And I'd like to share with you the story from Heineken. Everyone will know it when you live in the Netherlands, and probably when you live somewhere else in the world as well. Heineken has a large public cloud environment, and it's in fact multi-cloud. It's both Azure and AWS. There's a lot to say for an organization trying to stick to just one. When you go multi-cloud, you introduce lots of different challenges. There's a lot of things you need to do differently, because those clouds have a lot of similarities, but in the details they can be quite different. So you need to be aware of those differences. You need to keep your staff knowledge up to date with all the developments going on. And when you need to interconnect those clouds, that becomes quite another challenge. Heineken is the first Dutch multinational that recently decided to start using Aviatrix in its multi-cloud environment. CloudNation was not directly involved. However, as an Aviatrix partner, we have a good relationship with them, and we are able to share Heineken's considerations and the solutions they chose. Let's first a quick introduction about Aviatrix. How does it work? It's not a SaaS solution. It's not a managed service. It's something you deploy within your cloud environment, and it doesn't matter if it's GCP, OCI, Alibaba, AWS, or Azure. You choose where you want to deploy it. First, you start with the controller. The controller is really the brain of the whole operation. It's the heart where you do all the configuration, the single pane of glass from where you do all the deployments, analytics, troubleshooting if you need. From that controller, you can then deploy Aviatrix gateways. Gateways are really advanced networking and security nodes that you deploy within your cloud environment, and they take over the routing from the native constructs. However, they do integrate really well with those native constructs. From the controller, you deploy the gateways, you configure the gateways, and then also the route tables, for example, in AWS, are also automatically configured. There's no manual adjustments there necessary anymore. At the same time, the controller also has tight integration with through APIs with, for example, Fortinet Checkpoint in Palo Alto. If you want to still want to deploy those next generation firewalls within your cloud environment, they call that service insertion and chaining. F5 advanced load balancing is, for example, an option you can deploy. So from that moment, if you do that, you do the deployment, the Aviatrix controller also manages the Fortinet or the checkpoint route tables. There's no manual configuration necessary anymore. And all of this can be deployed through Terraform as one single multi-cloud provider. All the Aviatrix gateways, deployments, etc., can all be done as infrastructure as code. One additional option you can deploy is Copilot. If you really need that additional visibility within your network flows, within your cloud performance, or you need additional flow analysis or really multi-cloud topology overview, Copilot is the product that can offer you all of those. So let's have a look at Heineken, a simplified drawing of their environment. On the left, you see Azure with one central VNet, one hub VNet with a couple of spoke VNets. And on the right, the same in AWS, one transit gateway with a couple of VPCs attached. And those environments needed to be interconnected. However, when you only have the native constructs within those clouds, it's quite hard to interconnect those on an easy way, but also still maintain a high bandwidth and a stable connection. And then you hit also a couple of limitations that those public cloud services have. Heineken, in fact, did have a look at Azure Virtual One, which I discussed in the previous part, but it simply did not fit their multi-cloud environment. Virtual One is great for Azure, but there's no way you can attach it to in an easy way to AWS. So that's why they dropped that option. They deployed a controller. It's on the bottom left here, and then they created a transit layer. That's a concept that Aviatrix really introduced and also uses a lot within their architectures they promote. It's one central abstraction layer that interconnects everything. Like we see here, one transit Aviatrix gateway in Azure can connect a lot of different spoke VNets, but it can still integrate with a native solution. And it also goes for AWS. It still integrates with the AWS Transit Gateway if you choose to still use the native services for a part of your environment. So these gateways, Aviatrix gateways, take over all the routing within your cloud environment. So then it becomes quite easy to interconnect those two different public clouds together. And this transit layer really interconnects everything.
Mark.
Yeah.
Quick question on this case with Heineken. I mean, what we see, correct me if I'm wrong, but what we see is usually there are more teams. I mean, we have the Azure team, the AWS team within our organization, and maybe perhaps within even larger organizations like Heineken, you even have dedicated network teams. And yeah, what I understand from this case is that it can become so complex, and all those teams, they all use cloud features, and like you said in your first story, it's all a look-alike, but it's not the same. So these teams sometimes cannot really troubleshoot all the issues and get to the pain really. And with tools like this, it's much more easy to get to the bottom of the problem, because there's one pane of glass, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a good addition. Of course, larger customers have dedicated Azure teams, dedicated AWS platform teams, and let's say they are interconnected through IPsec VPNs, and there's some kind of outage or performance issue. Then this will be familiar to a lot of people, and in a lot of cases, those teams will point at each other. Well, no, the other team needs to solve this. Our end is looking fine. If you create one overlay network, like Aviatrix does, then that team is responsible for everything. And they also have the tooling and the visibility to signal and troubleshoot any connectivity issues that might arise. So that's indeed a really good addition.
Exactly, yeah, because that's exactly what's happening, right? If you get this complex with many public cloud networks, perhaps even other private applications and networks, you have different teams all pointing at each other because there's no visibility, and it's complex, and troubleshooting gets even more complex, and you will actually need tools to create that ease, create that visibility, and for everyone to understand what's going on.
Yeah. For example, one simple tool that is available within the Aviatrix controller is called Flight Path. It's a really simple UI in which you can look up, okay, what is my virtual machine in Azure, and what is my EC2 instance or a database, for example, in AWS, and which protocol and which port number do they need to communicate over. And FlightPath will check all the 24 or so individual services that are in that path, including the controllers that are available, but also security groups, network security groups in Azure, route tables, all those kind of stuff. And if there's any one of those services preventing that communication, end-to-end communication to happen, they will show a red flag. So that's the service you need to focus on to fix the connectivity issue. And like you said, it's one single pane of glass to control the entire environment.
Right. Okay.
Right. Aviatrix also introduced the concept of security domains within your cloud environment. It's a really nice segmentation layer with some basic security measures. So like in this picture, you have VPCs and VNets all with a couple of different colors. All the segments having the same color, they can communicate with each other, regardless of which cloud they're in. So if you have for example, a development VPC in AWS and a development VNet in Azure, and they need to be able to communicate with each other, it can seamlessly happen through the central transit layer. However, the traffic between different colors, that's not available by default, but you can enable it if you want. You can enable it in one direction, but you can also decide, well, I want to enable traffic between those different color segments, but I want it to pass the central firewall first. So the firewall is deployed in the central transit layer. Traffic is sent to that firewall, so you have a more fine-grained control over communication between those different security domains. So you can, for example, only allow certain application ports to cross the boundaries between those security domains. And still, all routing is centrally managed, greatly limiting routing errors. And security domains can also be stretched to the edge locations, data centers attached to Express Route or Direct Connect, IPsec VPNs, or partner connectivity, client VPN, etc. You can assign each location or each endpoint to a specific security domain, and this way you can, for example, decide that a specific partner can only connect to one VPC and nothing else within your cloud environment, or just a handful of VPCs. Security domain have a really nice, rough, like a segmentation layer within your entire cloud environment. It's not limited to one or two of the public clouds.
Yeah, so another quick question, Mark. Why is it important to or not to use the segmentations with all the colors and the security going on there?
It's this thing we see customers do anyway, but they now do it by using network access control lists in AWS or network security groups in Azure. And that's something you need to manage yourself. You need to maintain the code. As soon as you add an additional environment with additional IP ranges, you need to check all those rules of code again and see where updates are necessary. So this makes the management a lot more simple. You just do it from the controller.
Yeah.
And if a new environment is attached or created, just assign it to an existing security domain, and all the rules are deployed automatically.
Makes sense.
In the case of Heineken, they already had Fortinet next generation firewalls deployed, and those needed to be integrated in the environment again. So they are deployed within the transit layer, and they then control, like I said with the previous slide, they control the traffic between the security domains, and they also can control east-west, north-south traffic. You decide whether it needs to pass the firewall or not. And this now becomes a repeatable design, which in the future could also be expanded to OCI, GCP, Alibaba Cloud, etc. So should Heineken take over another company and integrate its cloud environment, which one common challenge that's often seen is that there's IP overlap. IPv4 addresses are not, everyone is using the 10 range. As everyone knows, IP overlap is something the native services cannot cope with at the moment. Aviatrix can do that. So there's no limitation from that point to attach that additional cloud environment and integrate it with the rest of your public cloud. And taking a look at Copilot, the monitoring and visibility tool I mentioned earlier, it's NetFlow 9 compliant, and it will deliver the network visibility and analytics that the network management needs for troubleshooting or solving security incidents, etc. And again, all of this environment is deployed as code through Terraform. When you deploy Terraform, you talk through the controller, and the controller then deploys all the resource sources and configures them, the route tables, the security domains, etc. And to summarize, from Heineken's point of view, there are really 4 major topics that made them decide to choose Aviatrix. Business agility is improved, operational efficiency is being improved. They see less incidents, and when they happen, they are resolved quicker. Business continuity is improved, security posture, etc. And in the end, also cost saving, and not necessary to hire additional staff as the environment grows and becomes more complex. All right, to summarize these native trends, native network services are becoming more mature and able to cope with larger, more complex cloud environments, and the scalability they require. Both the AWS Transit Gateway and Azure Virtual One can help you a lot with that. Customers want to be in control and spend less time managing the cloud network. New virtual networks or VPCs for business units or departments, they need to be deployed and connected in a fast and predictable way. And services like Virtual One are able to enable this. A lot of increased security features are coming available, especially with the native services. And our advanced solutions and platforms are available for multi-cloud and/or complex use cases, or where additional visibility or analytics are required. That was my part. Are there any questions from the attendees? Or is everything clear?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think it was very helpful and clear. We talked about AWS, we talked about Azure, what's going on, why you should still choose to add additional features on top. Still, they are really improving their features as we speak. But we still see organizations choose additional features or security features on top of that. And on the other hand, we talked about, hey, we see organizations going for AWS and Azure and even GCP or Oracle, Alibaba, when they are in China. It's getting more and more complex, and you have different teams in your organization on managing that part and pointing the finger to the other part. Hey, our part is really doing well, it's your part. And you want to keep that under control, build a single pane of glass where you can build in additional features and manage your security policies and integrate with other features as well. And yeah, we see that that's really going on a lot. And in the case of Heineken, they saw that as well and really made use of the Aviatrix platform in this case. Yeah, so thanks for your insights today, Mark. It was great having you. Yeah, so we have one more speaker left today, and we asked one of our partners, Aryaka, to join us to also share.
Pascal, I see there's one question coming up in the chat I'd like to answer.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see it.
Yeah,
we wait and answer this question.
Yeah, I can answer it quite quickly, and I know Barry, the guy putting the question in there, so I can also contact him separately. But I'd love to answer this. From a multi-cloud perspective, can Aviatrix integrate with non-public clouds, where usually the more traditional network vendors are used? Yes, they can definitely. There are at least two options. Of course, the gateways can talk BGP. So if you have any component within your data center, either using IPsec VPN or Direct Connect or Express Route, the gateways can talk BGP over that and exchange routes. But Aviatrix also offers one physical appliance. It's a CloudN appliance. It's really an Aviatrix gateway in a box, and you can deploy that within your data center, and then you can use connectivity over any private connection you want, again, VPN or Express Route or any other solution. So there's definitely a good integration with private data center solutions.
Okay. Yeah, before we go on then, are there any more questions or not from my side then? No. Okay, cool. Then we can now go on with Lisette. Welcome, Lisette. Lisette is from Aryaka. It's one of our solution partners. And we really would like to hear from you, Lisette, your perspective on what's going on in cloud networking. What do you see as the trends? What's going on? What do you see your customers looking for and doing? So yeah, perhaps you can introduce yourself and share your perspective, and we can talk about that.
Thank you very much, Pascal. Delighted to be here. I've been with Aryaka for 3 years. I work out of our UK office, which is next to Germany, our sort of biggest operation. But I'm 100% Dutch. I've been in the UK for like 20 years. And somehow it's always interesting when when I'm in sort of with a Dutch company to hear people speak English. It seems really to be like the second language of everyone. But
Yeah,
thank you very
absolutely.
much, Pascal. So yeah, let me share a few slides. Yeah, and feel free. I like this to be interactive. Hopefully you guys can see this. I'll put it into presenter mode. But yeah, so sort of cloud first one, the need basically for change there and doing things differently. So I always like to tell the story how sort of the inspiration for Aryaka, because back in 2006, 2008, when the founders of Aryaka got together, they saw that business critical applications were going to the cloud. And at the time, it's very different if you think back a couple of years, just when Office 365 just started to take off. Netherlands was actually quite an early adopter of that. But they felt that ultimately all business critical applications were going to be served from the cloud. And taking that into account, that the sort of network paradigm, which has been there for years, if you think what's happened in the world of networking, it's been rather stagnant. I come originally from the networking world. I've sold X25, frame relay, IP VPN, MPLS. And that's where I stopped, left KPN, and moved into into the software world. And guess what? 20 years later, I'm back into connectivity 2.0, as I call it. And I see that ever since basically I left 20 years ago, not much has changed. And it's really this cloud paradigm now, which is making customers review their networking. Because if you serve your business critical applications from the cloud and take those from those on-site environments, obviously where the users were used to this performance of applications in an on-site world, suddenly you bring the world of latency into the picture. Internet not always being reliable, close to home, very much so. If you go further afield, particularly globally, it changes the world enormously. So Aryaka at the time came up with what they then called and pitched at investors as an application delivery network, because the world of the word SD-WAN didn't exist just yet. And if you look at our architecture, we differentiate ourselves also from other SD-WAN players or SASE players, that we have a cloud-first architecture. So we really had the opportunity with a blank sheet of paper, thinking through what, if you bring all those mission critical applications to the cloud, take them away from on-site, your MPLS is not going to work. This is all point to point, and either way you have to then serve out, which is adding even more latency, or you have to sort of completely change to a different architecture. And that has really been sort of the inspiration. So we serve a lot of international customers, typically because latency there is an even bigger issue if you introduce cloud. Mid-market, enterprise, very solid organization. Typically, all basically what we do is via partners. Different to sort of the telcos which go from point to point. We deliver our connectivity solutions cloud first in mind, and have developed this around a layer 2 core network serving different points of presence, or we call them service nodes, our cloud nodes across the world. And if you look at this map, you see that all those service nodes have been very strategically positioned across the globe to deliver certain application performances. So really thinking through where do we need to be to reach those office workers, and deliver them an application performance which is pretty much consistent with what they're used to from an office environment perspective. And in order to do that, so obviously we put those POPs in certain positions, typically, or service nodes, typically close to the different cloud providers, as you can see here, often in the same buildings. And additionally, we rewritten the protocol we use, TCP/IP protocol we use between the POP and the customer site over that last mile internet. So we do a few things there. It's our patented technology, which help us again to make that suitable to serve those typical application performances. So very different indeed. But because of this architecture, for us, delivering cloud to our customers, we don't need virtual appliances and different things. It's a software configuration at those points of presence to give our customers access to those cloud configurations, be it their infrastructure as a service, AWS, Google, or be it basically for the most famous SaaS applications, Salesforce, RingCentral, and others. Because of what we do on this last mile, our link assure, the TCP/IP protocol we have rewritten, we are very suitable for voice and video. So much so that even Verizon is using us still today to incorporate us in their Blue Jeans application they acquired to deliver basically improved voice and video experiences. Go through digital transformation, move your applications to the cloud, and you, in essence, basically your MPLS breaks, because MPLS is a point-to-point, and from your neat spider or hub and spoke, it turns very quickly in messy spaghetti to connect to all those different clouds out there. So in essence, that's where companies are looking to cloudify networking. Telco operators, very much so, to protect their very profitable MPLS, have jumped on it and creating overlay as their one networks over the MPLS. But if you truly look at this is a compromising the MPLS networks, because you take capacity of that MPLS to actually run that overlay on top of your MPLS. So you're not necessarily getting more out of it. You're probably sort of compromising a little bit there as well. And you're not solving the true challenge of connecting to your clouds. So if you want to do it and you go through digital transformation, host your applications in different clouds out there, because everyone pretty much goes for a multi-cloud environment. You're looking to cloudify your network too. And that's when something like True SD-WAN will pop up. If you're an international organization, then you'll bump into the challenges of the laws of latency. And that's where a company like Aryaka comes in, where we not only sort of run it then over a private backbone, which gives additional security, but also sort of have the patented technology to optimize and accelerate it and deliver a better perceived performance than even the laws of physics there. But yeah, so that's sort of a quick answer to that. And then to go sort of the evolution you asked about to the world of SASE. So back in, as I said, Aryaka was founded sort of 2008, 2009, but then more recently, you see that SD-WAN has become a thing, which was not necessarily a thing when Aryaka was incepted, and that most of the larger technology organizations are jumping on it. The growth rate forecasted for this whole sector is about 60%, and by 2026, this world of SD-WAN is expected to be $30 billion US. So a significant market indeed. And you see that all the different technology providers are snapping up other sort of organizations, really trying to take a grasp of this SD-WAN space. But whilst basically, as I mentioned, there's a space around overlay networks over MPLS or the pure vanilla internet, neither really solve the true challenge companies face when they move their business critical applications to the cloud. And that's where sort of Aryaka comes in again with the sort of the combination of technology running in our sort of POPs. So what Gartner observed back in 2019 is that where SD-WAN is, following digital transformation, is now in their sort of hype cycle, coming out in the slope of enlightenment. So it's becoming mainstream and really replacing MPLS at a fairly rapid pace, much to the disgrace the telco operators out there, because they want to continue selling the MPLS as long as they can. But do the customers really need to buy it? You can put a big question mark, because it doesn't give them the flexibility. It doesn't necessarily allow for cloud connectivity in the same way an internet-based solution, which in essence Aryaka is as well, can do. And if you then start bringing this into an architecture with intelligent service nodes, such as like Aryaka has from the start, you can see how you can bring additional services into those intelligent service nodes. Combine that where and accelerated very much by the pandemic, where suddenly we all found ourselves working from home. And depending on the country where you're in, here in the UK, there's still the guidance is very much work from home. So suddenly office-based traffic got reduced to, well, not close to nil, but very significantly. And depending what sort of sector you're in, you see that professional service organizations like consultancies and stuff, they pretty much have no office-based traffic anymore. But if you look to manufacturing, of course, there's still that essential business critical traffic running via the sites. But that sort of has led a rethink of how corporate networking is going to look like. And you see that it will be merging into what they call a secure access service edge. So you can think of more than just branches. You can think of every endpoint, being it a IoT device, being it a private or an employee, or being it a branch, which needs to have access to the corporate network in a secure way. And that is where the SASE comes from. And today, SASE means many different things to different people. And it's very much at that peak of inflated expectations, right? It's the buzzword, it's the hype. So you see everyone jumping on it and labeling themselves SASE. And you see it's also closely followed by something called firewall as a service, which is basically, again, if you think about how we're consuming networking from points, Office 365 from point, you can actually start consuming your firewall also as a service, and don't necessarily need to host it on site. And they go quite closely hand in hand, because if you are a network as a service provider, you can just imagine running those firewall as a services and providing those essential integrated experiences to customers out there. So in essence, that's what SASE comes from. And SASE is following this SD-WAN hype and is merging at a very rapid speed. It says actually here 5 to 10 years, but very much accelerated by the pandemic. So if you then look at what's happening in this world today, and you will all be in it, and maybe you recognize your own organizations in this picture too, you see that, the world of SD-WAN, the world of firewall as a service, and that is sort of migrating as two key elements into the SASE evolution, but very quickly followed by the secure web gateway, cloud access security broker, and the zero trust network access. And those 5 individual buyers or sort of streams within organizations where they would ask for an SD-WAN provider, firewalls, and individual sort of buying cycles, you see that is very quickly merging into 2 different groups, and ultimately in the next 2-3 years, that's all merging into one big buying cycle. Very much that integrated secure access service edge procurement within organizations. So we believe Aryaka can be very well sort of positioned, because again, we have this intelligent service nodes, our sort of cloud in essence, you see here, which service those essential networking and security functions to the end customer. We believe that at the high end, even as we go through the convergence of SASE, enterprise customers will continue to have a need for either way an on-site, firewall to protect their branches or specific data centers from a defense in depth. And we will continue to support that. But at the same time that is happening for those specific branches, you already see at a rapid pace, particularly for more professional service organizations who are less dependent on those specific sort of secure requirements for sites. You see that our integration with Checkpoint Harmony Connect at POP level offers zero trust environment and providing remote users wherever they are in the world or their IoT devices, including basically access from the office with that secure network access. But then it doesn't have a specific branch security. It's all managed from the cloud. And in addition to that, Aryaka has recently acquired a company called SecuCloud, which will be, this is at integrated service level, but obviously this software will be running from our POPs and deliver a further integrated solution for customers looking to procure this firewall as a services or sort of integrated network as a service with security solutions out there. So
That's
yeah.
quick question. I hope this will work now. In this drawing, this architecture, we see a lot of solutions. I mean, firewall solutions, cloud security solutions. Back in the start of our Share and Inspire today, I talked with Mark about native cloud services, and those are ever increasing, but still we see a lot of organizations choosing on top of that to add additional security functionality or SD-WAN functionality or cloud networking functionality from third-party integrations. This we see back in this drawing as well. Is that what you see happening in Aryaka customers as well a lot, or do you see the growing need in native tooling happening as well?
Ultimately, I mean, and I'm going back a little bit in my sort of security background as well, but depending on the size and the type of organizations, you can see there's a defense in depth strategy, right? So yeah. If you go to more enterprise, and then if you specifically if you go to sensitive organizations like a banking or whatever, you see they will go further mitigating risk, because as we all know in the world of security, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And by investing in security, you will be able to sort of mitigate your own risk factor. But go down the food chain and go down to more mid-market or even sometimes smaller organizations or organizations who are a little bit are perceived less vulnerable. They're equally vulnerable, but they perceive their risk is less in the sense of, you know, you can spend X and risk Y, and so their Y is less. So they will have a more risk-averse strategy. So they're less risk-averse strategy. So for them, just having a cloud security or just a solution would be enough, but they might still invest in working and networking security perspective, where you have an on-site element. You know, you had the appliances, or you can run a software version on our appliance. You have the cloud security, which is gaining in popularity because you can almost work towards zero trust network access. And then you've got the new SASE, where basically your networking and security is an integrated stack being served as part of connectivity into your network. So those are very much sort of the options out there. And we see some organizations choosing to have both cloud security and some sites with on-site premise security on top of it. We also speak with organizations and some very large telcos are there who actually are very interested in the specific sort of integrated secure cloud at POP level, because they firmly believe that be it the Zscalers, the Harmony Connects, or the Palo Altos are just too expensive for a large segment of the market out there as well. So as they always say, but yeah, it's in the world of security and protecting yourself, it's not if, it's when. And then it's about, for each organization, how far do you believe you ought to go to protect yourself in the most optimal way, and what suits your needs. I personally see, and maybe it's also the route I take, if I'm advising my partners and customers, I very much believe in that the cloud security and this and the SASE route, and therefore making it easier to protect all your different endpoints and not just focus on sort of what's happening on those branches, is going to be the way forward. And I actually think that managing the security from the cloud can be strong enough. We've worked with an organization in the financial services sector, very much sold this picture here with an integrated Harmony Connect offering the zero trust access, and they won't have a firewall piece because they believe that's strong enough. Then of course there will be application security. They will run application security on the and the cloud environments as well as on site. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Makes
Does
a
that
lot of
answer,
sense. So
Pascal?
basically, it's what you just explained is it's about the risk appetite. Larger organizations most of the time have a bit more appetite to mitigate the risks, or you have an organization that has some very sensitive material to protect. But yeah, we see the same thing happening, that cloud security is becoming more and more important. Protecting the endpoints. I mean, since the pandemic started, people were working from home, not having the best of breed security there, just their own Wi-Fi network. So that's a new branch location actually that needs to be protected. And yeah, you can do a lot with the tooling that's available within AWS or Azure or Google, etc. But yeah, still we also see a lot going on top of that. So yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So this is an asset. Yes. So where we see sort of the media world evolving, and we continue to support our best of breed integrations with Palo Alto, with Checkpoint, because we firmly believe, especially larger enterprise, will continue to look for those. But at the same time, we are extending our integrated service stack and building out the software we're running in our service nodes, our cloud, as my support team likes to call it, with additional sort of the security software being able to not just offer network access, but it also will be able to sort of offer the firewall as a service, a DNS, secure web gateway services, really growing out our network security offering here to our customers and partners. So I'm super excited about this because I firmly believe that if you think about it, the world is now in a hybrid working mode. I don't think that's going to change. You might move more back into offices, but I don't think we will ever be as static in offices maybe as we have been. But
I agree.
equally,
I
if
think
you
that's
think
never
about
going to
it,
happen again. Yeah.
yeah, I yesterday learned something. The VFX, the WFX, the work from anywhere. That's I need to build that in my presentations. I really love
Yeah,
that.
work from anywhere. I actually, just a small story, I actually saw on LinkedIn a post from someone I know that used to live in the Netherlands, but I mean, she has a remote job mostly like we all do now. And yeah, she just moved to Spain and worked from there and does the same as she does from home in the Netherlands. And it doesn't matter. It's really work from anywhere nowadays. You still have to have a boss that's okay with moving anywhere, but I think it's all possible, right? With the technology we have, and you don't have to be in the office 9 to 5 anymore. It's proven last year. So.
And we already also have one of our own colleagues who went abroad for a couple of months and work from there, different time zone. But if the customer is okay with it,
yeah,
there's no other limitation.
Yeah, but yeah, so and I think that's where the main thing you have to think about is how do you secure it, because obviously our office environments at home have become a lot more professional. At least my setup has. I was just working typically from a little screen and my in essence my laptop. But yeah, apart from the technology challenges today, I need to dial into the VPN, and then hopefully that will work better on the next occasion. But that in essence we have to make sure we protect that, because otherwise we are potentially more vulnerable for attacks from the outside world there.
Yeah.
Yes. But super excited about this, the new world and developments. And if you, I think for all of us in the connectivity space, if you think pretty much for the last 20 years, nothing happened, because when I left KPN, that was about 20 years ago, and I moved, well, the first year in the UK, I still worked for KPN, so 18 years. We were selling MPLS, and today pretty much that was or still sort of happening, and only now you know, the world of connectivity finally is moving ahead, and so it's exciting times, and I'm yeah, definitely excited to be part of it.
Yeah, it is. It's exciting, and there are a lot of new things going on, and like you just explained, also on the security perspective, which is very important nowadays. I think there's so much happening, and as an organization, that's something you really need to be aware of and think about. And yeah, for us, it is exciting. We also come a lot of discuss a lot of these topics with the organizations we work with, and we of course work together as well with Aryaka, and it is very exciting to work on a more protective world where we can work actually from anywhere on a secure network.
Definitely. Yeah, so my internet connection is getting unstable again. I don't know why this is. Sorry for that. I see questions popping up. Is there any questions for me or Pascal? Let me
Yeah, let's see. No, the questions were already answered, I believe. Or I don't see the right questions. I'm not sure, but no, I think those questions I see were already answered earlier on. So
okay, perfect. Yeah.
I'm not sure. Are there any other questions, or please ask them now? No, I don't think there are any more questions then. And we can wrap it up a bit earlier. Like I said at the start, we booked 2 hours for this Share and Inspire today, not really knowing how it would go and how long we would need. Oh, I see that we now get a question from one of the attendees. Lisette, the question is, what is the network as a service about? More, what's the underlay network of that service?
Okay. Good. So network as a service, basically being able to consume your networking as you do your Office 365 or your CRM, basically in a similar, I'd say, operational as well as commercial way, I suppose, right? So with the same flexibility to easily scale up and scale down, switch on and switch off. That's at least my definition. I'm sure you'll get other definitions. And then, but also being able to, that it is served from a cloud environment, because that will typically allow it. So the underlay network typically leverages the internet. And why does it typically leverage the normal internet? Because that allows the easy switch on, switch off. Because if you think in the world of MPLS, it can take easily up to 12 months to get a certain connectivity realized in China, whereas internet is typically freely available. But if you're an international organization, you might struggle because just internet is typically not good enough again. So that's where our sort of services come in. They combine a little bit the best of all breeds. So we deliver it in a network as a service model. So you consume your networking, you don't buy boxes, there's no CapEx involved. You really sort of consume the network services in a subscription way, start them at a certain day, finish them at a certain day, and we deliver everything what is required as part of it. And then, of course, leveraging the sort of the backbone to serve it out. But most importantly, we host all the software for this from our service nodes, from our cloud. In the same, like when you consume an Office 365, you also consume that from a cloud. And we extend what we do in a service node via an intelligent device to branch sites. But as mentioned before, we also can deliver the services essential to home workers as well by leveraging the VPN software or their existing VPN, or they can basically consume it, including the VPN software we run in our service nodes as well. Yeah. What backbone is used besides of public internet? So Aryaka leverages own private layer 2 core, but it is not just a layer 2 core. We run intelligent software over that core. So you see that some service provider partners, they leverage their own MPLS backbone. Some competitors of Aryaka leverage their own MPLS backbone, but not a layer 2 core, because it's quite expensive, and I don't think any investor would allow that to perhaps happen. I think we were lucky enough to be early there. So those would be the most essential services out there we see. Some other providers have their own fiber network, which in essence they would use to provide internet connectivity as well. And then of course deliver services on top of it. So it's then, are they leveraging their own, even if it's own fiber, some companies have their own fiber, but they still then run MPLS over that fiber and then deliver the services over MPLS rather than over the fiber. So it's good to ask. And I think the most important thing is it shouldn't matter. If you talk about network as a service, it shouldn't matter. All what should matter for you is the application performances you get, and therefore SLAs, but those SLAs should almost go in application performance SLA, not on network SLAs. And the easy basically way of sort of consumer, the performance you get for the sort of the money you pay, and then what's underneath it, like with Office 365, you don't necessarily know what servers are being used to run Office 365, if they're Dell or HPE or so. You don't really care, or Nutanix or whatever. I'm just naming some brands out there. So and that equally basically is a little bit in the network of a service fashion. It's about the service levels you offer, and I think that's always something what Aryaka has sort of held very high. If you go to the Gartner peer-to-peer reports and you read sort of the feedback of our customers, it's very impressive, and it's probably one of yes, we do have our own worldwide backbone fiber network. That's correct. Yeah. We can deliver 5 nines over the core, and if it's end-to-end we deliver, so including internet, we can do end-to-end 4 nines. Yeah. And what I'm most excited about is that we are transitioning now to deliver those SLAs, not just in nines in connectivity, but what does that mean to the applications you consume? Because ultimately that is what you're really interested in, like what is basically the service level for the application, what speeds and feeds are you gonna deliver me there, and we're gonna make that visible in our customer partner portal, My Aryaka, and then I think that will be that's first and foremost, and that's the step towards also making that a more contractual obligation to our customers. And yeah, personally I think that's very exciting, because that's really what it should be about.
Well, Lisette, something I was quite impressed about getting to know your portfolio is that you have very impressive deduplication and compression services that make use of the available bandwidth very, very efficient. So in fact, you can take a lower bandwidth connection solution than you would normally have with a traditional solution. I think that's a great advantage as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's yes, and I think it's the bandwidth you purchase. Ultimately, it's the price tag we sort of put to it. But more importantly, I think it's also the performance it delivers. And Mark, you're fully right. I think if you truly look at sort of the patent technology, what we do over the backbone, and sometimes I get asked the question, what's your latency between Hong Kong and London? I can give them the numbers, but in fact, it doesn't matter, because the perceived latency we can deliver between London and Hong Kong is a fraction of what that physical latency is. And that is what we are really all about, is delivering those sort of performances. And Equally, you know, if you see what we can do over the internet connection, but if you sort of connect from Amsterdam, or say from whatever, Zwolle to Amsterdam via the internet, and you want to run sort of voice and video applications, me being a bad person because I haven't used my own services today, which is bad. But usually we basically can mitigate that with what we call our link assure. By the way, basically we have rewritten that TCP/IP protocol to make it very suitable to WAN and not just, of course, the LAN environment where it is really written for. Yeah. But so, yeah, for everyone interested, we are always happy to do proof of values, and in particular, I think what's exciting about us, we can deliver the same optimization and acceleration mark as you just mentioned for cloud, whereas obviously other providers will struggle, but we can do it for your Salesforce, for others, and even if we don't leverage a core, the fact what we do at the POP with this optimization and acceleration is very powerful. I work with Vodafone in the Pacific, for example, and I was well impressed that we were able to deliver a much better Oracle, Office 365, Dynamics, you name it, cloud performance to their customers in the Pacific Ocean, leveraging just the internet and what we do basically at the Aryaka core with the cloud environments, because the Pacific Ocean consumes all cloud from Sydney, sometimes Singapore. And they really struggle, but we've been able to fix that problem, and MPLS, their own MPLS couldn't do basically what we were doing over the internet, that is what it's all about. Yeah.
All right, so are there any more questions? Ask them now. So I see one more. For the SD1 connection, network as a service, can customers bring and manage their own encryption keys?
Yeah, they can, yes.
Yes, they can. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, then I believe we're gonna wrap it up for today. Mark, thank you for your insights and stories today. And Lisette, also thank you for joining us and for your insights and perspective from Aryaka. And yeah, the session is recorded for everyone. You can watch it back, and we will put it online for those who couldn't attend today but still are interested. And we would love, again, we would love your feedback on this first edition we did. We want to do this more often, but we'd love to hear how often, what kind of topics, physical, if it's possible again, or set up like this. Do you want us to invite speakers or technology partners like we did today? Yeah, let us know, and we'll drop a survey as well. And yeah, thank you all for joining, and we'll hope to see you again, of course, because we really want to build a community where we share these insights and stories, and yeah, where we can all learn from each other, actually.